Good. All right, welcome everybody. We're going to continue with our November 19th Board of Selectmen meeting. I invite everybody to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on the agenda, we have public comment. If you have a public comment, I invite you to come up to the podium and please state your name prior to the comment. So on that note, I'll open up public comment. Not seeing any, no public comment. I will close public comment. So we will move on to new business. First up, Historical Society discussion. Milton Historical Society. And prior to this, yes, I just want to disclose that I am the Vice President of the Historical Society.
Hi, thank you very much for having us on the agenda. My name is Krista Capello. I'm the President of the Milton Historical Society. And we come to you today because our organization has shown a very keen interest in combining both the Historical Society with the Plumbers Ridge Schoolhouse. What we would like in the realm of the interest that we have with this historical building, we find that it would be our preference to work with that building in a purchase from the town and relocate the building to the adjacent area across the street. We know that there is one property that's been condemned and is going to be demolished. We think that the efforts of our organization with fundraising and the outlook that we have on preserving the most important aspects and history of this town, that this particular building, along with all of its contents and history in general, would be very beneficial, not just as a historical society, but Milton in general. We believe that the Historical Society has a lot of opportunity to bring not just information and outreach to our local community, but we can also act as a destination spot, as an interest for the larger area as well for historical purposes. I think that's what I'm here to say, and to start us off in the discussion, I'd like to introduce Mr. Catwick, who's been very involved in many buildings here in our town, and I think he would be the person to really discuss what the attributes are and where we'd like to go with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. I'm excited about this proposal that they're putting together. As we all know, the schoolhouse has been sitting there for 10 years and I've been overseeing it, but I'd like to give you overall my feeling, I think most of the people in the town of Milton's feelings, as well as a little bit of the history and how we got to this stage. The first thing is that we, Milton, all together are doing a great job on historical buildings in this town of Milton. Just for an example, I'd like to run through some of that are active, as we said here today. And I'm excited about every one of them. As you know, the townhouse is in restoration process still, heading in the 9th year, expecting to complete in 2019. The Milton Town Pound, we've all talked about fixing that, and it's kind of limbo right now, but I'm sure we'll get onto that, I hope, by next year or so. In that particular case, it's all to do with funding, like a lot of these jobs are that we do. The next place is, these again are all active right now. Lieutenant Horn House up the road, where Nick Marie's mother lives, is in complete restoration. It's one of the biggest, oldest places on Plumbers Ridge. The first town meeting for the town of Milton in 1802 was held there. The Farm Museum is an ongoing restoration. The Little Red Schoolhouse in Milton Mills, Phase 1 is completed on a restoration. Hoping to start Phase 2 next year, waiting on a grant, probably the 1st of December we'll be hearing on. Ira Miller's store restoration, Milton Mills, is active right now, being restored. The Grange Hall restoration is outside walls have all recently been restored. And now the proposed District Number 1 Plumbers Ridge Schoolhouse. As we all know, Milton Three Ponds, the main attractive in this town is Milton Three Ponds is the heart of town. The veins that run from that heart are the historical buildings. 10 years ago, a little history on why we're at here today. 10 years ago, the Milton Board of Selectmen agreed to purchase the Plumbers Ridge Schoolhouse. And first thing we did is, I'll read you the ad that was in the Fawcett Daily Democrat from the minutes of a Board of Selectmen's meeting. This was in the Fawcett's in 2008. I'll read it to you. John Cowick appeared before the board to discuss the purchase of the old schoolhouse on Plumbers Ridge. He noted that the Sewing Society owns the building but can no longer take care of it. He felt the town should buy the building because it's a historical site and the town should maintain it. Mr. Gray agreed, which he was the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and said that we had to be sure the ownership was established first before we did the warrant article. Then Selectman Gray agreed to write a warrant article for the town to purchase the school building for a sum of $1. After that meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen did put up a warrant article. The warrant article was in 2009. I'd like to read it to you, and I'll give you the end result. To see if the town will vote, raise, and appropriate the sum of $1 to purchase the historical Plumbers Ridge Schoolhouse, located on the address it's at. I don't need to go through all that. For the purpose of this warrant article is to help preserve this historical schoolhouse. Here we are again today, 10 years later, talking about restoring the schoolhouse. Back then, the yes vote was 692, the no vote was 272. If you have a question, I'm welcome to hear them.
If you talked about moving the Historical Society from Milton Mills, I'm assuming, up here to the schoolhouse, is that that's not accurate?
No,
okay.
No, I didn't mean to express it that way.
And I might have misunderstood.
It would be combining.
Okay, so you'd still keep the property in the mills?
Property in Milton Mills. We run into some challenges with the property in Milton Mills in that it is on a very, very small plot of land.
Right.
There's no water, there's no chance for water, there's no septic, and it has limitations in letting everybody access it. We look at this building being, a sister property that we can do exhibitions and have different events at both locations, but having a building that lends itself, that's more accessible, that lends itself, that has space for parking, that lends itself, that could possibly have facilities and more storage, would all be important things that I think really make this, a really complete package.
I personally would back this 100%. The whole. I remember Charlotte Stewart, who lived right across from the townhouse, who personally maintained these buildings for probably 30 years when I was a kid growing up. Spent her own money painting them, trying to keep them looking nice. And it's to see that building, that is the history. It's a huge part of Milton. Unfortunately, there was, 12 of them at one point, and that's about the only district schoolhouse that's left in Milton.
That's to answer your question. That's District 1, which was the first one. And then it went to Noose Ridge, that's still standing up there.
Not much.
That's District 2. And the other one that's still standing is on the old Wakefield Road down there where the guy was raising cattle. And I think those are the only three that's standing, other than the one on 153 that's fallen in now right side the road, which I don't want to say it happened to this one, but yeah, there was that many.
Yeah.
You know, and it really is, to your point, it is a back to the original statement I made, other than the 3 ponds, the lake, these are the buildings that make the town of Milton.
I mean, if you saw the inside of that, it takes you back to the 1800s, because it's, so, I wasn't there.
It's not only the schoolhouse that's a real historical value, is actually the old body house is another real historical thing that I don't think anybody, even at my age, ever saw the setup the way it was for the children back then. Back then, the kids were asked to stay separate, not only in the bathroom area, but even when they went in the building to change their coats. That's why it's got 2 doors on it. But there's a big history to the whole.
There's a little building to the south.
That's the one.
That's the.
That and the woodshed, right?
So that would get moved across too.
By horse and buggy.
So what are you looking for us to do?
Let me just finish up there.
Okay.
10 years later, here we are talking to preserve this beautiful historical schoolhouse again. And all I got to say standing here, I'm 100% in support of this. Number one. Number two, I got to say thank you twice to the Historical Society for bringing this to a head. Thank you. So my last sentence would be, please let's all work together as a team and accept this proposal the Historical Society has presented tonight. That's all I have.
So, yes.
What about the proposal that we had talked about months ago about moving it up to the New Hampshire Farm Museum and put it on the...
New Hampshire Farm Museum, I can't speak as it is today, but I've beaten that to death. And I've beaten to death with a new president or director, whatever he is. He's also involved with Middleton Town Affairs quite a lot. And is still at the same stage financially. There's no way possible that they could afford to have it moved up there and do the restoration behind it. Now, when it comes to the restoration on the schoolhouse, I'm sure, I'm not answering for the Historical Society, but it's going to take a lot of hard work generating funds to do this. If you people accept it and they become the owners of it, it's their responsibility to restore it. And there's some discussion we had on it already, and we're going to get into it even deeper. I do know of ways that we can generate funds not only with grants and fundraisers, but there's money out there, I think, that can be also donated to this restoration. So again, we're here for looking for support for starting another project of restoring that building. That building, in the last 10 years, I took it upon myself and made sure that nothing seriously happened to it, maintained like limbs through roofs and stuff. And really, overall, the main structure of the building is in pretty good shape. Thank you.
I don't know if you can answer this, or Kathy's gone, isn't she? How many acres are up there? What's the acreage
It's
on
less than
that?
an
It's
acre.
very tiny.
Not where the
Across the
school's at,
street.
across
Oh,
the
that's
street,
3
where they're
acres.
talking about
3 acres?
3.5, I
3 and a
think.
half.
Really, that's one, I didn't know that.
And I'm excited about you people looking at taking it down, because we went through it last year on the Bowling Road, and we have twice a problem across the street that we didn't address, but now we'll address it for safety because there are kids in that area also. But anyway, we're looking for your support.
So any further
Come on.
discussion from the board?
Look at my support.
Obviously, you got my support.
I don't have a problem with it.
So what do we do?
What happens with the taxes and all, you know, what are all of the legalities and everything that we're gonna have to go through?
That's something that's gonna
We'd have to,
we're gonna have to come out, because once that property across the street where it sits now, something's gonna have to happen to that.
Yeah, we have, We have the owner of the property that's around it sitting here in the audience tonight, hoping that question would come up so he could start hearing it from start to finish wherever it ends up.
Yeah.
Mr. Tim Smith?
Tim Perkins.
Perkins, I'm sorry.
So sorry, go ahead. That piece of land now, who currently owns the piece of land that the house is
We
sitting
do.
on?
Town
The
The town does?
Yeah.
Is that something, I mean, and I'm just asking, you know, would you be interested in purchasing that to complete your lot, or?
Yeah, I could do that, you know, for the price you paid for the building, probably.
He's quick.
He is.
That would be, we'd be interested in that.
Okay.
I mean, as far as tax purposes go,
It's not worth
Right.
anything to anybody other
Right,
than
well,
him,
and the
so-
thing is we have so many little pieces of land here, there, landlocked, not, you know, I just soon, you know, square that off and,
Okay.
right.
So how do we move forward?
So I think the town, we need to consult with legal, and there's probably gonna be a warrant article let the voters decide at the end of the day.
To transfer the schoolhouse to the historical,
Speak up.
to transfer the schoolhouse to the historical society.
The
That's what
town, yeah, right, the
Right.
town.
So we're gonna transfer the schoolhouse to the historical society from the town. And then we'll go from there.
Speak up, I
And the-
can't hear.
Yeah,
So you're gonna have to transfer the
so that'd be the first step.
schoolhouse
From the
and then the property across the street as well.
right, and the property across the street.
It's the same transaction we did except reversed. 10
To
years
Mr.
ago.
Tim Perkins, correct?
And then
Okay.
adding another
We can do
property
that
to it.
afterwards.
I'm just making notes
Oh,
for
okay.
me.
So that would be the warrant article. Schoolhouse to historical society
All right,
and land.
Want that in motion?
sure.
I'll put it in motion.
That
we
we,
just said.
What about
A
Come on,
motion
repeat
to
it verbatim.
what's on the land?
support a warrant article to sell the schoolhouse, all the contents, to the
And all
Historical
buildings,
Society for
yeah.
$1,
Mhm.
and the property across the street.
What's on
Is that
the- 1121, isn't it? Oh, the schoolhouse.
Oh, that's right here.
1121 White Mountain
Yeah,
Highway.
it's 1121, I thought.
1121 is the property
Land.
across the street.
Right.
And it's tax ID 22-19-00. And the schoolhouse's address is 1116 White Mountain Highway, tax ID 22-17-00.
What about what's in the one, what about what's on 1121?
Well, I think the
It's on the agenda, isn't it?
hope is the 1121 property is
Gone,
gone
cleaned up.
Take- so we
before
need to
this time.
So we need to take care of what's on 1121 first. That's
Yes.
the plan, okay.
Yep. So,
Okay.
do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
And just before we vote, if the board feels I should abstain from this vote
No,
because I'm on the
that's
Historical
fine.
Society, I will, but it's entirely up to the board.
It's
No.
not like you're the
Okay.
president, you're only the vice president, so you just.
Okay, I just wanted to disclose all that. So, roll call, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I think the warrant article should say land only. 1121,
We
land
have-
only, 1121.
Work all those
Well,
details out.
hopefully
with
by
the
that
lawyer.
point. it
Yeah,
will-
that's what I mean, I'm gonna put that in there like that.
No, you have to stay for the rest.
Yeah, leave us.
What?
We can clear out a room pretty quick.
All right, so next on the agenda, TPPA 2018 end of year review. Steve?
Yep, we make it. Thank you, folks, for seeing us tonight. Give you a quick summary. You guys just got a package, actually, it was here last Wednesday somehow between Dana and Heather. get to you. But we're not going to go through it page by page, but I did want to give you a little synopsis of where we are and who we are. TPPA was started in late 2004. I began it and quickly found about 6 or 8 people who joined me on board. We started by sending out about 600 letters to both the town of Lebanon and the town of Milton, property owners on the lakes, on the 3 ponds. And of those 600 over the last 14 years, about 200 have become members. And we currently get from those 200 odd members about $13,000 a year in annual giving in terms of donations. So that's about $65 on average donation, but on the whole we have about 100 people who give $100 or more. So we have a lot of donations to keep this going. And the initial goal was to keep the ponds clean, because we know that it's really the lifeblood of this town in terms of taxes and whatnot. And right from the start, I was always worried about avoiding milfoil. That was the nastiest weed we'd ever heard of. And actually, for those of you who know that the pond down below us, in the just Spalding Pond, has got milfoil pretty badly. We got it about 2008 from a dirty boat or two going in, and then once you get it, it's tough to get rid of. Well, we got our own weed to deal with, European Naiad, and we found that about 2 years ago. And we immediately jumped on it, although it's quite innocuous in terms of what it looks like compared to milfoil. It's still nevertheless an invasive weed, and it grows. And so we've been trying to avoid that continuing to grow, and we do that in a number of ways. One of the ways is we do boat inspections. We do it at the beach, and we do it at Jeff's Everett Cove. And this past year we did well over 1,600 boat inspections. Now the kids that worked for Karen Brown down at Town Beach get paid $1.50 for every boat they inspect. So this year we paid over $1,000 to Karen Brown's, I think it was about 8 kids that worked for her over the summer. So we're trying to keep the ponds as clean as possible. And we do that by looking at boats, which is one of the ways we think that a weed gets started. We don't really know how we got European Naiad. There's all kinds of possibilities, including even a bird dropping something in the lake. But nevertheless, we got this problem, and we're trying our best to keep it at bay. Rather than go through this package, which you've got in front of you, I'm going to ask Wayne Sylvester, who Wayne's been on the board for about 8 or 10 years, works very hard to get grants. And we've gotten both New Hampshire and Maine involved in helping us get rid of this weed. And we get them involved mostly because Wayne's a good grant writer, but also because they know that the 2 towns, both Milton and Lebanon, are involved at the board level. And one of the things we'll propose at the end of this package, if you get that far, is that we keep your involvement through maybe another committee. And I know you guys are already stretched too thin, but we think that showing the states, New Hampshire and Maine, that the boards of both towns are involved helps us get more grant money. If they think, oh, TPPA is the only one pushing for their money, they might back away. But we have gotten continued support from both New Hampshire and Maine, and we want to keep it going. So what I'd like to do is ask Wayne to come up and give you a summary of what we found on the 3 ponds this year and what we've done, as well as what we propose for future funding.
As Steve said, we were hoping that you would receive this package earlier, so we'd basically be answering questions. But I'd have you turn to the second page, if you would, please. on the summary of results. The weed was first identified in 2015 by a snorkeler by the name of Dennis Roberish. And he was snorkeling on Depot Pond and saw something that he'd never seen before, which was European naiad, or brittle naiad. And he said, this doesn't look good. So he reported it to us, and we did some investigation. We contacted both DES and DEP, and they did not have much history on it. As a matter of fact, this weed only exists in 4 other bodies of water. One in Kittery, Maine, a little tiny pond of less than 5 acres, and 3 other lakes or ponds in New Hampshire. So DES and DEP were not only interested, but eager to go and find out where it came and what to do next. So in 2016, Maine DEP went and we hired a company called New England Milfoil out of Brownfield, Maine. They went in, and there was a 41-acre area on Sewell Shores north, heading towards the Salmon Falls River. They went in, and in 5 weeks, they went and they harvested over 26,000 gallons, all right, of this weed. And this is due to what's called diver-assisted suction harvesting, which, as you probably know, is they send a diver down, they manually pull the weed out, they put it into a hose, it then goes up onto the boat, and then it's hauled off and disposed of later. 26,000 gallons. At the end of that year, it was estimated that they probably got about 40% of the weed, which meant that this is not an efficient or a good way to go and take care of this. So Maine went and said, although they're reluctant to do it, that we're going to go in and use herbicide, which is it's a chemical called Reward. The actual chemical is diquat dibromide. It's been around since the mid-1940s. It is probably one of the least invasive or damaging to habitat, to wildlife, to fisheries, and to native species. So they nuked, all right, in 2017, that 41 acres. At the same time, we went and contracted New England Milfoil for 5 weeks of dash. And they found this plant at the mouth of the Branch River. They found it in the channel. They found it in several other areas, but not in great numbers. And then what happens, as you can see, at the end of 2017, that the survey, the post-removal survey, that we went and we hired Laurie Callahan from the York County Invasive Aquatic Species Program. I can't repeat that, all right? But to go in and to survey after the DASH unit had gone in, the effectiveness of that removal. And she said they did a pretty good job. So we felt pretty good about that. And therefore we went and we said, yep, the control was pretty effective. And then we went and wrote grants, further grants. So the first year I wrote grants, and we got about $32,000. In 2018, this past year, DEP went and said, we feel that we need to go back in and apply herbicide a second time. Because what they found was that in the northern area up by the Salmon Falls River, that the herbicide treatment wasn't quite as effective as they had hoped, and that there were plants that were there. So they said, we'll go in and we'll pay for a second year, but this will be our last year to pay for herbicide treatment. We also went and contracted doing a milfoil for an additional 5 weeks. And they came and once again hit the spots that they had visited in 2017 with a few additional spots in 2018. In 2017, we knew we had the big mother lode on Northeast Pond. We also had an area on Branch River, at the mouth of the Branch River. It does not take a rocket scientist to go and figure out if it's there and there, chances are it's also in the middle of the ponds, Northeast Pond. In this past year, yes, we did find it in scattered areas in Northeast Pond. Furthermore, we went and found it all the way up the Branch River to the last cottage. And we did go and find it in several areas in the channel, particularly on the main side, and down by Fire Island. So the plant had spread. It's no surprise that I did that this past summer. It was a record warm summer, and when we began harvesting the plant at the end of July, the plant was about this tall. In 2017, it was about this tall. But because of the increased temperature of the water, the plant had grown. Now, we don't know whether this year was a typical year or an anomaly. We only have really 2 years of data to go and decide. And unfortunately, Maine and New Hampshire, they don't have any additional data. So they're as much interested in this plant as we all are. But one thing for sure, they don't want to see it spread. Now, as you know, it spreads in one of two ways. At the end of the summer, the plant goes to seed. And this is at the end of August, beginning of September. And there are these tiny little mustard seeds that form in the plant. And that's one of the ways that the plant will propagate. The other way that the plant will propagate is by fragmentation. So if you were to go and harvest this plant in the first, second week in September, the plant will break apart in your hands. Hence the name brittle naiad. Now this summer, I found fragments on my dock, wrapped up around the posts of my dock. I found it on my bottom stoop of my deck. And what happens is that as boats churn up, all right, this plant, because either A, they're not obeying the 150-foot full throttle, all right, on the ponds, and we know they don't, all right, or because our ponds are so shallow that the propellers begin to break this plant up, and the fragments will spread it as much as the seeds will. So at the end of 2018, we did a post survey, and we found that there was some additional plants in the channel and a site that on Townhouse Pond where the new culvert is. An area not real big, probably from about where we are right here, but still that was not there in 2017. So where do we go from here? Clearly this is going to be a long-term investment by all of us. We feel as TPPA that we are the stewards of the pond, but we are not the financial, we do not have the financial means to control this. This has to be an action of both TPPA, Milton, and Lebanon. So in 2017, you people appropriated $10,000 to fight the weed. The actual cost, because of all the grants we received, was about $2,077, all right, which is the bill that the town of Milton received and the town of Lebanon received. This past year in 2018, after talking to Andy Rawson and based on the fact that many people got whacked with increased tax bills, whatever, we felt it was prudent to go and ask the town for $5,000 to appropriate to fight this plan. As we go forward, I would think that $10,000 per year is probably the target figure for now. I requested 10 grand from both DES and DEP for 2018. That's what I had requested in 2017. I got more from DEP and a little bit less than that from DES. I would expect, I've already written a grant for DES, I requested 10. I'll probably be happy if we get 5. Last year they gave us $6,300. $6,300 represents 25% of the cost of the dash, all right? At first, DEP said, we're not gonna give you anything for dash because we're gonna pay for the second herbicide treatment, which was $11,000 roughly. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. I just filled out a 12-page grant. You're not gonna give a squat? And finally, John McFedrin, he's a great guy, he came back, he said, okay, we'll give you $3,700. That'll make up the difference from what Amy Smagula, DES, all right, I requested 10. He said, we'll give you $3,700. There's your 10 grand that you asked Amy for. I would think that at some point in time, and I'll let Steve speak to the numbers, for 2019 and beyond, that TPPA has, we've salted away a good sum of money. But that will be used up within 2-3 years if the grant money dries up and or the plant is found in increasing areas. And if we have to go for a herbicide treatment. If I could do it, I would take many of these areas that have dense vegetation, like at the mouth of the Branch River. Did we do a good job getting rid of it this year? Yes. Will it be there next year? Yes. because you can never, ever get rid of all the seeds or all the fragments. Is this a doom and gloom? No. I truly believe that we can control European naiad. Will we eradicate it? Don't know the answer to that. If Amy Smagula or John McFedrin were here, they would tell you the same thing. We don't have a history on that. So we're in it for the long haul. But I do think that if we do not combat this plant in an aggressive manner, it would not take more than 4 or 5 years for this plant to seriously affect the quality of Milton Three Ponds, which, as John Catwick said, is probably the greatest resource that you people have. We all have. So what are we going to do next? I would expect that in 2019, we'll probably request from you people $10,000 more. All right, and from Lebanon, $10,000 more. And then Steve can talk about the actual numbers, all right, that have been spent and where we would like to go. But this is something that we cannot just sit back and say, well, maybe it's not as bad as it really is. 5 years ago, I thought that it would be phosphorus overload into our ponds. That from surface runoff, because of erosion, that this would be the greatest threat. And it is a threat. It's a huge threat to our ponds. All right, surface runoff. But now we have this invasive species that we have to attack, be aggressive, and continue to be aggressive if we're going to control it. You want to talk about the numbers?
Okay.
Okay. So I would go to the cost sharing page.
Yep.
And then Steve can address that.
One of the first things I'd like to get to is the money that you folks set aside from last year. You had set aside some money way back when Andy and others were at the Plymouth Fund Board. And because we got a fair amount of money from both New Hampshire and Maine, as Wayne had said, but we only asked for and billed you $2,077 last year. And so we put aside a fair amount of money in, and it's, I think, Heather, in one of the accounts, I'd like to get that money into our coffers. That way we're not always looking back at the money that we should have gotten, and that way we can count on it, know it's there, put it in the bank. And then talk about where we go in the future. My goal would be, as Wayne has said earlier, to get at least $10,000 a year from both Milton and Lebanon. Now, Lebanon, as you know, is a smaller town, smaller budget. We go before them end of next week, and we'll see. They've gotten the same packet, so they know what's coming. But last year, interestingly, we had tried to split the money 60-40 by addressing the size of Lebanon's budget compared, and Chip Harlow, who's the chairman of the Board of Selectmen over there, said, no, we're in it together, so whatever Milton's paying, we'll pay. So they paid the same $2,077 last year. Now, they have a different accounting structure. They can't push funds forward or drag them back, whatever, but end of the year, they have to vote it in and pay it. And so they don't have the ability to take money that they didn't spend last year and bring it forward. I'm not sure why, but that's not really here nor there from my perspective. What I would like to get tonight from you, if possible, is the agreement to let us get those monies from last year, and then a discussion about can we afford to put $10,000 for next year into the budget for you folks.
All right.
The money from last year.
Speak up.
If the money from last year wasn't encumbered, we can't go back and get it.
Are you talking last year or this year's?
I'm talking about, go ahead.
Well, in 2017, you people the town voted $10,000.
That's done as of
But we were
January.
told that that money could be carried forward.
Right.
But if it wasn't encumbered,
If it wasn't
wasn't
encumbered, then it can't be, unless it was specifically stated, this money will encumber this money and move it which we don't have that in front of us, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean,
At one point, didn't we encumber some of the
Oh,
money?
we did.
I'll have to check into it, but as far as I know, it wasn't encumbered.
I thought we did.
Did we?
That was one of your encumbrances at the beginning of the year.
I'll have to check into the, hold on. I don't think it's in this
I
report.
think it was, because,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we were
I
told it
remember it.
was.
yeah, we weren't gonna lose that, so,
It might be in this report. If it is, I can check. It's not in this report.
That was a question that we had
Town
addressed to
report.
both Andy Rawson and Mike Bolio at the time. Is that this money, if we do not spend it all right, what happens to it? So we carry it forward,
yeah.
all right? And it was like, okay, fine. So it's like, I don't know what you call it, what that particular.
right.
Let me look
capital-
into
not
that,
capital reserve, I don't know what you call it.
Encumbrance.
Wasn't on
Yeah.
the end of the year.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I remember encumbering
Naiad,
NIAID money.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the exact figure was, but I remember
do you remember what
it would have been my first
It
year
would
on
have
the
been in
board. So
January of this year.
or December?
Yeah, December,
But
January.
then the time frame. All right, I'll look into the encumbrances tomorrow
Okay.
first thing.
All right. Yeah, that's important, I think, because what I'd like to do is get as much as we've sort of been promised from the past into the current. That way we don't have to keep referring to it. Remember, back when, like we're doing tonight.
Invoice.
Was it or wasn't it? I think it was. We were told, you're not gonna lose that money, don't worry about it.
And there again, I'll agree with you. I don't want to get into the 60-40, but Lebanon is actually bigger than Milton's, population-wise, land-wise.
But I don't think their budget is. I think maybe
Wow.
the 60/40 came from the number of properties
On the
on the
line.
pond versus,
Right.
so it's
I mean,
taxes.
I back this 150%. I mean, I've watched your maps, I've read your things about, when you put the herbicide down, it's one day and gone, and there's no residue from it, so it's,
I appreciate
I
it.
think it's huge. I mean, it is a lifeline of
It won't
Milton,
be.
so if we don't protect our investment, we're in trouble, so.
Right.
Did Grady's Lake, is that one of the lakes? Because I know they've got the NIAID monitors when you launch. Are they?
You mean Great East?
Did Grady's have it?
Great East had,
They had milfoil.
They had a
It
bit
was
of milfoil,
introduced, and
which
they
they
feel
got.
that they got rid of it in 1 year.
It's not in here.
yeah, they found the milfoil and
It's
it's
called,
it was in
that's
there.
not much.
Because you did a map. When you did a map last year that showed the affected areas on Milton 3 Pond,
Right.
where it, and then I remember reading it. That where it failed,
Yeah,
where you did you took it up and then it came back. I remember seeing it.
right.
So.
Yeah, as Wayne showed, we've got some new spots. this
So
year.
now in the middle of Northeast Pond actually has spots?
Scattered plants.
Yeah.
But it's so shallow
It's
there.
only 4 feet, 5 feet deep.
Again, because of this is a plant, one of the things we urged at the town beach, they have a wash station.
Mhm.
Everett's Cove has a wash station.
Mhm.
We got the campground to have a wash station. So when people take their boats out at the end of summer, even if they're leaving at the campground, they're bringing it home or whatever. If you're kayaking, and it doesn't have to be a motorboat, if you're kayaking in September, these seeds are becoming attached to the bottom of your kayak. So whether you leave it at Mighty Joe, or you bring it to your house in Milton or wherever, and then you bring it back in the spring and put it back into Depot Pond, Northeast Pond, whatever. To the best of DES's knowledge, these seeds could be viable for years. So the minute you put that kayak back in the water in the spring,
Up it
you're
goes again.
infecting the pond.
Oh, you go to the north end of Northeast Pond, the Lebanon side, I mean, Sewell Shores, I mean, they go wide open, it's not deep, and it's, they go over the 100 and, they're closer than the 150 foot. And that place is loaded, but it always has been with
Right.
weeds and.
Right.
I mean, I back at 100%, whatever we can do to. Do we do a warrant article for?
It is one of the proposed warrant articles, so we just need to decide what the figures you want to put in for next year.
So you think 10,000 would be?
Well, yeah, I'd love to ask for more, but I
Yeah, well,
I know what, I
yeah.
know what Milton budget's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
too, so.
Yep.
But I think we're, I don't wanna be penny wise and pound foolish, because I think in the long term, sort of like crabgrass in your lawn. You can either, if you let it go for a few years, you've got nothing but crabgrass.
Right, yeah.
So,
I mean, we looking for a figure for the warrant article now?
Well, I think
Right.
I think they're proposing, we put $10,000 in the warrant article,
Right.
I'll make it that in the motion then.
so. All right, I'll second it. Any discussion?
Can you just put that into dollar figure motion instead of just?
$10,000.
Thanks.
Chief has his hand up. All right, if I recognize him?
If you set it at $10,000, you have to go through the CIP process.
$9,999.
But if
And then,
it's a planned thing that we're going to do for extended years, it should be in the CIP process anyways. That way we plan for it, the whole process out.
Yeah, it should.
But given this late of the game,
Right.
for this year, we go the 99.99, and then next
Get it
year
on the
put in the CIP. Because they might want to increase it if $10,000. I mean, it sounds like we're just even keel right now. We're not getting ahead of it. I mean, if it's.
That's correct.
But if that way, I'll make a motion for 9,000.
Should we talk to Bruce and see if we can get it? Because there was other things talked about adding the CIP, and I
It never
haven't seen them
happened
coming.
either.
Right, because I don't think anybody's come to the planning board.
The CIP's coming,
So-
stuff is coming in a couple
If-
weeks, and they haven't come through, he told me. None of those things you talked about have been brought through to the CIP, he told me.
Who's supposed to bring them?
The people who are interested in bringing them through, proposing them.
So I mean, I think we should try to get this in the CIP as soon as possible.
so should these gentlemen come back, then when's the next planning board meeting?
There's one tomorrow night, but.
You're not gonna get on it that quick.
No.
So, the next one is in what, December? So, come back before that. Is that too late to?
He has paperwork for it that maybe we can
When
get him in
the
touch with
warrant
Bruce.
article's done.
The warrant articles we have to define. I think we need to put this on for a warrant article already.
Right.
It's on our
It's
list
not
of
gonna
warrant
help us
articles.
for
This year, but
Right.
next year moving forward.
But I
I
think
mean, it would be nice if we could work around it, work together to get to just put it on there for $10,000. I mean, I guess it's only
But we
$1,
can't-
but.
But we can't because of the CIP, so if we stay under the 10,000 threshold for this year.
If we talk to Bruce, we might be able to get it in there, I guess what I'm saying, is we might be able to get in there in time.
can we have
That's all.
Bruce get in touch with you?
sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to have happen.
I mean, the consensus is definitely, the Board of Selectmen is supporting this,
Yeah, that's
and we want to go forward with it. And
first and foremost. That's great. Do you need my email address or a phone number, or how, what do you?
Yeah, why don't you write it down and give it to me so it's not broadcast?
Okay.
Okay?
Yep,
And then Heather, you're gonna
thanks.
I'll
figure
follow
out
up.
what we encumbered.
We will find.
I'm gonna follow that up, yeah.
He's good with numbers.
That's good.
I have to look at the encumbrance report. I just gotta see what's been paid out of it.
The last thing I wanted to say before we go is that Norm Turgeon, who you well know, and he's off to a family wedding in Leopard, Florida, last Friday on the worst day of the year to go to anywhere. He's probably still in the airport in Boston, but I haven't heard that. Anyway, he did a lot of work on this, and one of the things he wanted to make sure is that we talked about the idea of putting together a group. Back in 2016, we tried to organize a steering committee, which included board members from the select board on both sides. And it didn't really get off the ground, and the only reason we're proposing it again is because DES and DEP, Maine and Hampshire, are gonna get together this winter to figure out what's the best way to attack this thing. And I'd like to get one person from each town to act on that committee as well, just so that both states see that you guys are involved. As I said from the beginning, I think they have to understand or want to support us, but feel more strongly about that if there's some sort of select board involvement. I'm not asking for a member tonight. Could you think about the idea of putting this committee together with us being the guiding factor and maybe one person from the town being on that committee. All right?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we did have a motion on the table and was seconded. So we need to retract that. Right, just
That's
for-
gonna be pending,
We never voted. So you did, made a motion of $10,000,
oh, I'll retract that.
and you're gonna second it.
I'll unretract.
All right, and we're all in favor of retracting the motion, just to keep things clean,
Yeah.
that's all.
And you're gonna talk to Bruce, or you're gonna talk to Bruce?
I'm gonna talk to Bruce and he's gonna give me his email so it's not broadcast, okay? I think that's the cleanest way to go.
All right, next up, accept the recycling grant, Pat Smith.
Pat gave you everyone these nice handy dandy folders. He's like, we appreciate these folders back tonight, at the end of the meeting. So if you wouldn't be so kind to turn these back into Pat. Told him.
We had the opportunity to put in for a 20% grant on a solid waste equipment. And currently, we're in need of a 30-yard open top. We have one that's rotted around the bottom, and the braces are rotted. And so we got a quote for $7,100, and that's with shipping. And the grant would come in at $1,420. And I would like permission from the Board of Selectmen to accept that grant and move forward with replacing our 30-yard open top. And that will come out of the revolving account, the solid waste revolving account.
So the balance of the 71,
We have to pay the 71,
Right.
and then they'll write us a check for the 1420 to offset the cost.
And that comes out of the monies that
Out
have
of the
been
revolving-
raised, right?
The revolving account.
I just want to make sure people understand
Yep.
that it's coming from monies that have been raised. for-
Revenues.
Right. I'll make a motion to go ahead and accept the,
I'll second it. You gonna put a figure with it?
accept the grant for $1,420 towards the purchase of a 30-yard open top container.
From the,
New Hampshire, the.
no, from the revolving fund.
No, that's.
Oh, that's a grant,
Right,
okay.
Right,
The grant from the New Hampshire the Beautiful.
right.
I'll second
All,
that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to, do you have to approve his spending of the 71 as well?
What is it?
What's that?
Does he have to have a motion to approve the 71 spending?
I can-
You approve the grant. You have to approve his spending of the 7,100
From the revolving fund.
from the
Yeah, you do,
revolving
'cause it's
to
a
then
round.
be credited back the 1,400 from the grant.
limit.
Yes.
You do, because it's over the limit.
So do you want me to just continue on the same motion? To spend the $7,100 required to pay initially for the 30-yard heavy-duty open-top roll-off container with the reimbursement of $1,420 in the form of a grant from New Hampshire the Beautiful,
From the revolving.
from the revolving fund for the sum.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Next, approval of transfer funds from highway vehicle capital reserve fund to general fund.
This is just a housekeeping item. Back in July, the July 16th meeting, you authorized me to purchase a F-250 Ford pickup from Rochester Ford. We're getting close to having to pay for that truck, and we're gonna get the check cut for that. And I need a vote from the Board of Selectmen to transfer $38,631 from the trustees, the capital reserve fund that the trustees hold, to the general fund to pay for the truck.
I make a motion to transfer from the Highway Department Vehicle Capital Reserve Fund the sum of $38,631 to the general fund to pay for the vehicle for the highway department.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, warrant article discussion. Heather?
Yep. You all got a packet tonight from me on what proposed warrant articles. One of them happened to be the European Naiad. Tonight, what I'd like you to do is take those tonight with you, look at them, and see how you feel, mark them up, come back so that we can have a meaningful discussion on December 3rd. Because we need to have those together for December 3rd so that we can move on. On December 3rd, we're going to be looking at the CIP articles, and then December 17th, move on and vote on the December 17th on the CIP.
So you're gonna go back through the meetings of the ones where I brought it up for a warrant article and put that in?
These are the ones I had, and then you did mention one at the beginning, that there was that IBC, and Ryan pointed out that that has to go through the...
Well, that's why I brought it up back when I brought it up, so that it would be addressed. And here we are in November, and it still hasn't been addressed.
Well, that has to go before the planning board.
Well, I don't know that. I brought it up to the town planner, and he did not tell me that.
Okay.
So if you look back in the minutes, they're in there. Go back in the minutes, you'll find where I brought it up for it to be on the town warrant.
Well, I spoke with Bruce at the last planning board meeting about this, and he said he was going to get back to me. He needed to think about what was the best way to approach this.
But he's known about it for probably 4 or 5 months now. That's what I'm getting at, is things are just getting dropped that we're discussing in these meetings.
Well, I mean, we can't just blurt out stuff and expect
I didn't
people to
blurt it
run
out.
with it.
It's in the minutes of the meeting. I brought it up. I made a motion to put it. It was one of my agenda items.
But did we ever actually vote on it?
I don't
think we
know.
did.
I don't remember that far back, but it was brought up
Well-
to put it on the 2015 International Property and Maintenance Code.
I know, I remember you bringing it up, but that's all I remember.
Well, everybody
No,
remembers, but nobody ever does
We did
anything
talk about it
the
as being
stupid
part of
thing.
a warrant article.
We did, but it has to go through.
Well, then,
I mean,
somebody at that
Planning
point.
If you
But
want to
that's
discuss
what
it
it
now, I'll tell you my opinion on it if you want, but
Well, you know, and I know a lot of people's opinions on it, but everybody has an opinion about the way things look in town. This is something, as I brought up when I first brought it forward, is this gives some bite. Everybody has a problem with the way the town looks. This gives some teeth behind, it gives you a warrant article to clean up the town. This property maintenance code has some teeth behind it. I know it's New Hampshire, I know it's a live free or die state. Well, guess what? If you don't want it, then vote it out, and then don't complain to me the way a property looks. Then I think that was the speech I gave when I brought it up the first time, so.
and I've done a little bit of research on it, and from what I'm seeing, I don't understand how the town's gonna be able to enforce it unless we drastically increase some departments.
Yeah.
Because
No,
there's a lot
it's-
more to it than what you're saying.
No, there isn't. I've seen it work. I'll take and give you a tour and show you where it's worked.
I think if we're gonna get to the point where we tell people that they win and how they're gonna paint their houses, I don't think it's gonna go over well. You're gonna be
Just
spending
you're slow.
so
No,
much
because
money
we've been
on,
telling you to finish your
on attorney costs. It's not gonna be
No.
beneficial to the town, but
There's gotta be some, there's parts of that, though, I think that would be useful.
you can't pick and choose what you're
And I
gonna enforce.
And I understand that. I understand that. But there are parts of it that would be useful. But I think that we need to put it out to the voters anyway and let them decide whether they want to
And
adopt
then if
it
they
or
have a
not.
problem with the way the town looks,
At least it was put forth.
and then the majority speaks.
Okay.
But with that being said, this is not the first time. This has been on the docket from back months and months. Right after I got on the board, I brought this up. And the town planner told me point blank that you know, it's a live free or die state. And I was like, I don't care if it's live free or die or not. It's still, the people have the right to say
Right,
yay
but
or nay.
I think when the town planner is asked the question, especially from an individual board member, he will give that individual board member an answer, but I don't think he's taking it as a task to go out and
Well,
try to
he
get
should
it
have advised,
implemented.
he should have advised that this needs to go through the planning process. Don't you think?
Well, was he ever really, I mean, you,
Well, yeah,
sounded like you asked him about it, but
no,
did
he
you
came up
actually?
to me after I brought it up at the selectmen's meeting as an agenda item. He came up to me as the town planner. So I brought it up as something that I've seen work.
Okay,
So, whatever.
but again, bringing it up as something you see work and just dropping it at that doesn't send anybody into going to do something
No,
about
because
it.
nobody does their jobs, all right? Let's just face reality. I mean, it's just getting old.
But I don't know, I mean, we're all over the map, and we gotta
Yeah,
somehow
we're all
stay
over the
focused.
map because you called me out on that I didn't put on detail on an agenda item from the last
I've called
meeting.
everybody out since I've
You
been
didn't
on
even
here.
call yourself out. I mean, I went back through the minutes. Yours is some of the worst ones on there. You're just one sentence, one little tiny sentence about what we're going to discuss. It's like, there's no backup on it.
Excuse me, which item are we on
Hold
now,
on.
please?
We,
Warrant articles.
Okay, can we go back to that?
we're
Yes,
not
it
on
is.
public
This is a
comment.
warrant article. So, we're missing this warrant article that I had talked about, so. I had that on as a warrant article for this year coming up. It's not on the warrant articles that I was presented tonight.
Okay,
Can I ask you to talk to the planning board about it tomorrow night and then get back to me and we can add it to this list and I will email it out to the board?
like last meeting, when I was asked to ask Bruce about it, I asked him at the last planning board meeting, that was 2 weeks ago, right after our Board of Selectmen meeting. He has not got back to me yet. So when he gets back to me, I will share the answer with the board, like I said I would do.
Okay.
And I can't do any more than that. I don't understand why, if you're really pushing it, Andy, you can call Bruce, and you can do the legwork to figure out what needs
The
to be
other
done.
planning board rep, you talked, at the last meeting, you were gonna bring it up to them the next night, is what you told me.
Brought it up to Bruce, is what I told you.
I guess maybe.
Maybe
bring it
he'll
up
have
to
an
planning-
answer tomorrow night at the meeting.
Any other further comment on the warrant article discussion?
Nope, I just have to read them up.
Next up, old business, proposed heavy hauling ordinance discussion, follow-up. Heather?
There is a typo in this that I gave you. Last week, or 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, we really needed to get into this a little bit more in detail. I understand there's an urgency to push through a new ordinance on the new through trucking and heavy ordinance on certain roads. However, in order to make it legal and enforceable, we needed to follow a procedure and a process. I've consulted legal opinions, and here's the outline steps that we need to follow. Identify the wording on the ordinance you need to enact and discuss and vote. And I understand after the meeting we were given a copy of what Pat Smith had proposed. Post the proposed ordinance for 10 business days. I know through tucking on Governor's Road, Hare Road, and then there was a typo, Newts Road. Advertise in a paper. The minimum cost is $308 for one weekday. So if I can put both post public hearings, that'll be the minimum cost. Hold 2 public hearings at posted BOS meetings. Reflect this in the minutes. The BOS can offer waivers for businesses on these roads. The BS could include as a part of the regulation the ability to waive the prohibition for businesses, but the waiver could not be a blank check. It needs to have some objective criteria if not, so it's not abused. Then re-vote to enact the ordinance. The BOS can set the fines. The BOS are the ones to set these. And pursuant to RSA 4111 and 4717, they may set the amount at an amount not to exceed $1,000 per violation. So, the proposal, the way Pat Smith had written those up, if that's the way you want me to post it, I'm happy to do so tomorrow, and I'll get it in the paper, and I will have it posted for the meeting on December 3rd and December 17th for the public hearings, at 7 o'clock, but I just need to know if that's the wording you want me to go with, because I need to put it in the paper.
Is, you know, they're talking about people that live on the road. This is through trucking. For somebody to drive a truck, a dump truck with his loader and bring it to his house is not through trucking. It's hauling trucks from one end of the road to the other end of the road. To go to their businesses, I know there's gonna be trucks going to Short Ridge Academy, and then maybe it will continue on. Well, that's not through trucking, that's making local deliveries. So I'm happy with it the way it is, and I'll put that in a motion.
Police chief has his hand up, I recognize
I
him.
know it's gonna be about the $1,000 fine.
Chief Grout.
Selectman Lucia's correct. I think jumping instantly to a $1,000 fine for a first offense is gonna cost us a whole lot of money and officers going to court every time they write that fine. I think if we stagger it, $250 fine for the first offense, $500 second, and $1,000 for the first, allows us to show a pattern of events to these people, and the judges are more likely to give us that $1,000 fine on the third offense. They're not more likely to give us that $1,000 fine on the first offense.
The figure came from legal.
Well, it's an ordinance, so we can write up to
Right, we can,
$1,000.
up to 1,000, that's what they say.
I honestly kind of struggle with this whole ordinance a little bit, simply for the fact that, I mean, I get it for the fact that we want to protect our roads, but I also look at it from the other fact that it's really not helping out our neighboring towns, and it's really not helping out local neighboring businesses, and that's where I kind of struggle.
I mean, you've got logging trucks.
I get it. I just kind of struggle that, I mean, I understand we're trying to protect the road, and the roads cost us money to maintain, but I also think about it from all the local businesses, whether they're in the town of Milton or in the next town over, that it's not, is it really that good for the local economy? I don't know.
It doesn't hurt our economy. I mean, I'm watching them. I don't know. I'm gonna go for it. So. I mean, I agree that probably we ought to do it, stagger it, 250, 500, and then 1,000, and I'll make that into the motion then for the fines.
I mean, we get complaints from the
it's about the only complaint that I've got is, so, the people on Governor's Road with, little kids, and, you got Dooley, which I guess isn't legal anyways, correct?
We just haven't caught them. We've got 2 complaints on it, but we have not, none of my officers have seen any of these dualies.
They're doing it about 5:30 in the morning is what time they're.
Not saying they're not going, my officers just haven't seen them, because we've got a report that they're doing them at 5:30. We also got a report they're doing between 9 and 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But we have not seen them.
So I'll put that in the motion of 250. The motion as written, with the exception of changing it to 250 for the first offense, 500 for the second offense, and 1,000 for the third offense.
So that'd be the fines, correct?
Fines,
That's the
yes.
fines.
And
So-
I'll second it.
So is this the motion, this is the ordinance you want me to post?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll have 2 public hearings on it, on the 3rd and the 17th, is that what you're looking for?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
And I will post it in the paper as well.
All right. Other business that may become before the board. Heather, do you have anything?
bunch of stuff under administrator comments. I give you some stuff now.
I'm just, it's up to you. You can wait till administrative comments if you want.
I handed you
Sounds
all.
like you know something, so what is it?
I don't.
Oh, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. I handed you all information that I'd like to discuss on the 3rd about town reports. What needs to be in it, required for town reports. Because I know we're getting into, we were probably going to talk about that at that point. And then optional information. So I think that's important. So I
Did you give that to us?
at the beginning of the meeting?
I didn't see it.
I don't think we got that.
I didn't get it.
I made copies of it, and it's not here anymore, so I'll make you more copies, then. Whatever.
Unless I missed it.
I'll make you more copies, okay?
Mm-mm.
Maybe it's in this, no, it's not in here, okay? Okay, here's important dates I want you to all have for SB2 towns, that's us, coming up. Talks about last dates for people to file petition warrant articles, so if you could take one down and pass it. There's a link to this for NHMA on our website. So
Is this
if
going to be on our website, dates?
That-
Not the
that-
link, the dates.
The link is on our website with all the information.
It's also a PDF of that form.
And there's a PDF of it, so people can look at that. But this gives us all information. This is from our legal attorney's office, so I think it's important for you to have all that information. I think that will help you. This is a little calendar. Did I give you this already?
Mm-mm.
Okay. This is our little calendar for the next month of December, as we're thinking ho, ho, ho. We might want to think of all the happy meetings and all the time we're going to spend together, because it's budget season. So all those bright color days, we're going to have a lot of time. I also wanted to tell you that we do not have any responses to the RFPs out. So that's that, and I can finish up the rest I have in my.
When does that close out? I saw somebody there this morning when I was leaving. There was somebody at
I think it's
one of them.
December 7th.
Okay.
December 7th, and then we will
Might
open
be
them the
getting, because I did
17th.
see somebody combing through there this morning, so.
But I just
didn't-
wanted to tell you that.
Yeah.
And I will make you copies of this. Let's see what happens. I'll get you copies before the end of the day. Unless I can have an administrative comments.
All right, any other business from other board members?
Nothing for me.
Good.
I guess one thing I'd like to have is a conversation on these agenda requests, if the board's willing. Is that
Do you
yes,
have any
no?
backup for it?
No, because
That was sarcasm.
I got that. So was that a yes, or?
Yeah.
So there seems to be a lot of contention over agenda requests. How do we fix it?
The backup has got to be, I mean, tonight was a perfect example of stuff that we didn't have backup that should have already been in our packets when we got here.
I
That got
agree.
handed to us in a pile, so it should be in the book.
Yep.
Yeah,
But I
and I
think-
mean, I'm looking through the agenda items, and I'm like, okay, I'm going through all of the paperwork here, and there's no backup to, I had no clue what the heck it was about, so.
No, I agree. But also, us as board members, I don't think we've been very good at putting anything in there. And I think we need to lead by example. We agreed on bylaws. I don't think we're doing a very good job of following them.
Was that in your bylaws? Was that in there?
So, I guess.
I'm just asking,
I
was that
guess
in the bylaws?
This is, when you say my bylaws, they're.
Our bylaws.
That was a group effort, and I wanted to be a group effort, so I'm not sure why that seems to get pointed to your bylaws.
Was it
So
in there,
can-
was
How
there
do we get by
backup?
this, your bylaws? Do you not agree with the bylaws?
The bylaws. is there anything in the bylaws about agenda requests and the
Well, I think
amount of
I think we're all
documentation?
guilty of it.
Because
I'm not
every
saying
one
we're
of
not.
these, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at every one of these, there's no backup there that was given at the last minute, there's no backup here, and this date on here is October 12th. And here we are, today's November 19th. There's no backup, but it states right here, presentation materials will be provided in advance of the Board of Selectmen meeting.
And they were dropped off at Town Hall according to the.
But they're not in the book, they were
I know,
given to
I'm
us tonight.
just saying, but
I
I
know,
don't think
but
I hold
I'm-
that one accountable to TPA.
Right.
Because I don't
Well,
think they
and
were
I'm
too
not,
happy we
I'm
didn't
saying,
have
but
the packets.
they dropped it off, but it never made it this far. So how do we solve that problem as well? Do we need to time, date, stamp everything that comes into the building? So that we know that it was,
I will say that to that particular case, I was at a conference Wednesday and Thursday last week, so I don't know what happened to it. I will ask around. I mean, I don't know where it went, but.
that, we just got that, and that, you know, the warrant article,
I agree,
and we
the
just
warrant
got that
article thing.
tonight. We did have, this was, you know, so, I mean, yeah, it needs to be,
So-
we need to have some kind of, if it's not, maybe we need to do, if it's not, if we don't have the backup by Friday when the packets are put together, it don't go on the agenda.
It's
I
not
mean,
even Friday, it's Wednesday.
All right,
Please do
Wednesday.
not do Friday.
And
If it's,
technically, as the chair, I can enforce the bylaws and we won't have much on an agenda. So I'm willing to do that, but I just don't want
then you get an
other
extra night
selectmen to get
off.
upset.
But
When
I
I
mean,
don't put a thing in there because it just says
It has to,
whatever without backup, because a lot of that has gone on.
so by Wednesday, prior to the meeting, if it's not,
that's-
if it's not in Wednesday, I think we need to extend that from noon maybe though until a little bit, like 2 o'clock, and that in the afternoon. Just to kinda, I mean, heck, we do it, let's
Request
say
must be
I'm
received
supposed
by
to come in
noon
and
time.
sign things on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Monday night and Thursday, and half the time that's not ready, so I mean, you know, and I give an extension on that, I mean, I take time, go to
Again-
Sanford, come back, and, you know, so I mean, if we
I think-
give a little bit and take a little bit,
I don't have the bylaws with me, but I think we all need to go home and
Permission
reread
to pull
them.
them on my phone because I have them.
I think I've said that before. I don't think we've done that.
so let's move it till Wednesdays at 2 o'clock and
So
say,
you're gonna
hey.
have to change
So
the
if we
form.
have a, is it,
And-
it's in there
on the
exactly?
form.
Yeah.
Is
It's on the
it?
form, it says noon.
We've
Okay.
been through this,
All right, leave it at noon. No backup, it doesn't go on the agenda, period. And that, everybody, across the board, anything. If there's no backup for it,
Right, and if
Then it
we
doesn't go on the
follow the
agenda.
bylaws,
You got
it's
it?
left up
Okay.
to,
And it
if somebody
shouldn't be-
talks
it
to the
should-
town administrator
But it-
saying that they're gonna have it by Wednesday, close of business, or Thursday morning, and they accept it, then
no, it
It's
should be
okay.
noon. No, it should be just noon then, period, across the board. If it's not in by Wednesday, if that's what it says in the bylaws, then that's what it should be.
that isn't what it says in the bylaws.
You just said, isn't that what you just said?
It says on the form, but it
Okay,
gives you
on the
authority to
form.
I mean,
The
I guess what we
agenda
need to
request
do
says
is
it's
read the bylaws and talk about them again at the
Well, if
next
it
meeting.
says it on the
Just-
form, I thought you just said the
Bottom
bylaws.
line is, it's not in the book, and, you know, when we come here on Monday night and we get it passed out to us, when we sit down, you don't, you know,
Not all of us hang around town all week. I picked mine up this morning, the booklet this morning. I left town Thursday.
It has
So I
nothing
got
to
the-
do with hanging around town.
But it is,
But,
if you
yeah,
wanna
it
go
does.
through it before the
If you want to
meeting.
go through it before the meeting, and that, if
Yeah.
you don't have all the documentation in there,
All right, that's why we're having this discussion. I'm not arguing that we don't need the documentation in there.
But I will say that there was a lot with, well, last week there was a lot of stuff that did not come in. This week was particularly bad between the snow day and the conference.
right.
You're kind of lucky you got your packets. I came in on the snow day.
So, I mean, it was like, things are not.
Right, that's why, and Monday, sometimes you have a holiday on Monday, or,
So if we can stick to Wednesday and I get everything by Wednesday, then we're okay. That's where the problem comes in.
okay, so Wednesday at noon, and if there's no documentation, then it doesn't go on the agenda. Period. No matter who it's from. And I think it needs to be stamped, the documentation when it comes in, I think it needs to be time
Just like
stamped.
they-
That's why certain people aren't getting it in on Thursday afternoon or whatever, you know. If it's not, if it's date and time stamped, by Wednesday at noon, it goes on the agenda. If it's not, then it doesn't go, period.
I'll second that.
So are you gonna change the bylaws?
Pardon me?
Are you gonna make an amendment
No,
to
it
the
doesn't need to
bylaws?
be amended. Isn't that what you just said?
I
It's not
guess
the
this
bylaws, it's
conversation
the
isn't going anywhere until
form?
I think we need to sit down and review the bylaws in front of us.
Then maybe we need to have a workshop. We can add it to our busy December schedule, just not from the 6th to the 10th. We could stay tonight.
We could. We could get the bylaws now and discuss them. I guess I just don't understand, why don't we go home and read them, and then we can discuss them at the next meeting? This was mentioned a couple meetings ago. I brought this up. And apparently nobody's read them still. So if we can't follow the own policy we put into place, it doesn't look good. And this is why we're in the mess we're in now. So. I'll put an agenda request to discuss the bylaws at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
I do think if we get everything in by Wednesday, I think everything will be resolved itself. Wednesday at noon, if everything comes in like it says in the agenda request form, we should be in good shape. And we will.
And I want
date
it all time-stamped too.
We'll date and timestamp
Yeah.
it. And we'll initial it too.
Okay.
Whoever
Maybe
takes
the
it.
seal of blood or something on it as well.
We're not gonna go that far, but
Okay.
we'll date and timestamp it. And whatever comes in, we'll put it in the box, we'll take care of it from there. And that will help us all.
The actual form, not an
The
email
form.
or message or word.
No,
form,
the front
actual
page,
form.
the front page with the form, that's where we'll go, okay?
I think it's a little excessive, but that's okay.
Well, until everybody gets in the habit of doing it, maybe it's what's needed.
Okay.
I'll second it to move it so we can get going.
All right. Well, I don't think it was a motion,
Okay,
was it?
whatever.
All right. Any other business may become before the board?
Nope.
Next up, approval of minutes.
I make a motion to approve as written.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, expenditure report.
Did those things get adjusted that Joanne and you were going to work on to,
She's made some adjustments. I know she was planning on being,
Yeah.
she's made some adjustments. She was planning on being here last Friday. She couldn't get here last Friday.
Andy?
So she's still working on making some more adjustments.
Do you know when those will be complete?
Hoping she's gonna be here this Friday. Oh no, she can't be here this Friday. So I will talk to her tomorrow and find out what her plan is. She can work from home, as you know, so she can remote in. And you sent me your questions, correct? Budget committee questions?
No, we really didn't have anything last week.
Oh, I thought you sent me some.
Oh, no, it was something else.
Okay, then I'll go look at that.
Any additional comments on the expenditure report?
Other than everybody's heat is getting, with the exception of police, is getting above and beyond. Has that been adjusted for next year, or?
We've got a different contract for next year. Different figure for the contract for next year, yes. This was a different contract. We budgeted for one figure and then we were told we were not on that contract last year. So now this year we're on a different contract.
Is
Yes.
it propane or is it?
Police are on propane, I believe, and we're on oil.
Yeah, but the fire department's propane, correct?
Yeah.
Police and fire are propane,
Yeah.
everybody else is oil.
And last year, the fire department it was their first year.
Yeah, but they're way over again this year. He's got an issue with that system up there.
Any other further comments?
Good.
Oh, I know what that is. I'm good.
All right, moving on. Next up, public comment. We ask that this public comment be strictly to any meeting material that was discussed, would be greatly appreciated. Start with Lynette. Please just state your name.
Lynette McDougall, I always forget. The two things I wanted to address, unfortunately, by having our comments at the very end, all those people are gone. One was on the schoolhouse. What I wanted to know is, why aren't we building a village with all of our old antique homes and everything else, so that we can actually have someplace people can come to, like they do in other towns and stuff? I don't understand why we're keeping everything spread out. That's just a comment, but I'm wondering, why can't we go that way? That's one. Number two is on the NIAID. I live on Spalding Pond, and I understand there's a separate committee for Spalding Pond, but I don't know who they are. And so I had to chase those guys down to find out who they are. But I think, is that taken into consideration also?
That was actually the first I heard of it.
Really? Oh gosh, it's just rampant there.
Is it NIAID or is it
NIAID.
MILF? Is it?
No, oh yeah, it's terrible. That's why, it's okay. What I'll do is, I'll call the people they gave me and everything and see if there's a
You have a
committee
comment?
already so we can present that. And then the third thing is I think that all three of you guys are wonderful people. And I think that you all want to serve our town appropriately and with respect. And I appreciate everything you guys are trying to do, each individually and as a group. Please respect that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Humphrey Williams. I kind of want to address a little bit about the meeting tonight, and I know Mr. Andy's frustration. I've come to the last couple meetings, and I think part of the frustration is something that was addressed last meeting by Tom McDougall. There's a lot of old business that is still not even covered in these under old business. For instance, from the last meeting, there were at least 6 items that I know Andy brought up that Tom suggested keep them under old business until such time as they're cleared. They're not here. The only thing that's under here is the ordinance for the through trucking. But I mean, there were items on the warrant articles that were discussed at that last meeting. There was a thing about the no parking in the downtown that was going to be discussed in Concord. There was things about the LED streetlights and what we're going to do. It's going to continue to be a problem in this meeting if things aren't kept here until such time as they're cleared. And you don't have to address them necessarily in every meeting, but if they're down here, you can at least make a point of saying they're here, and are we going to discuss it tonight? You talked about not having enough to discuss on the agenda. Sounds to me like you got more to discuss from things that you've never finished. And it needs to be kept here. And I mean, I'd like to see it. I'm gonna continue coming to the meetings. I'd like to know what happens with those items that have been addressed in past. It's never gonna go away until you guys address that. The bylaws aren't gonna change that. Nothing needs to be changed for that either. That's just common items that need to be discussed on agenda minutes, you know? So that's the only thing I wanted to address here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got this. I've been looking. Larry Brown. Some years ago, I used to run a $500,000 caseload out of 3 topics. One was a boxed to-do list. 1 check that it had to be done. 2nd check that it had been done. That was the first page of the book. The 2nd page was what I picked up from the parole department, which was a running day book of conversations I had had with every person. And the last one was a list of clients, what they were doing, and the timeline for service on that account. That's one. Secondly, nobody remembers Admiral Binge, B-Y-N-G. English admiral, time of the French and English wars, time of Voltaire. They hung Admiral Binge for ships not under his control that were riddled with termites. And Voltaire said, they like to execute an admiral from time to time. It encourages the others on the joys of committee work. A second comment like that, Carl Sagan giving a lecture on the history of the universe. 5 billion years, this sun is going to burn itself out as a giant red star. Plumbers in the back of the lecture hall, yo, Doc, what'd you say? He said, yes, in 5 billion years. Oh my God, I thought you said 5 million. You need to remember that in terms of the importance of the topics that come point by point. As regards the international standards for maintenance, you will find that the large print giveth and the small print taketh away. The detail is still as to what constitutes a threat to health, safety, and welfare, and it is geared toward commercial buildings. And when you get down to the small print, as Bruce probably would have mentioned, there is very little difference. Our own building inspector would have mentioned that very little difference. As to Plummer's Ridge, the Farm Museum could not take over ownership of the Sewing Circle building because we were poverty-stricken, one, and still are. Secondly, it did not fit with the historical mission of the Farm Museum, which was the preservation and continuing forward of the agricultural heritage. We also have easements on the land that ruled against that. In 2006, 2007, there was tremendous predatory pressure on small parcels like that on which the school district building stands. And there were people willing to take it over from the Sewing Circle and take it down and put something else up because it was a building. You have Plummer's Ridge, you have Appleby, you have the oldest houses in Milton Mills. You go straight north on 125 to the Railroad Museum. They have an old mill site. They have they have a blacksmith shop, as we do on Appleby. You go into Old Wakefield, you have the Historic Commission. We don't have a Historic Commission. Right now, the town owns the property at the corner of Silver and Dawson. As to warrant articles, you haven't, to the best of my knowledge, had a conversation about the total dollar amount you want to put into the warrants. You don't have a conversation about the topics of the warrants. You don't have a conversation about the legal language of what the warrant should be. That is much more necessary for the work of the board than to argue about the detail of a warrant for trucking on three roads, because you need an officer standing at the beginning of the road and an officer standing at the end of the road, and the officer has to be there 25 hours a day to catch the person who comes in at the first beginning of the road and the last ending of the road to make it work. And you don't have to read an ordinance to figure that out. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any
that okay?
We're just sticking to one was,
Oh, you can only have one time up there?
yeah, that was what we decided, unfortunately.
That's okay.
So,
Historical Commission.
are there any other public comments? I am not seeing any, so I will close public comment, and I will move on to administrator comments.
I just wanted to let people know that if you're a senior citizen, you were planning to come to the senior dinner tomorrow. It is postponed till next Tuesday because I guess there is some snow in the forecast for tomorrow. So unfortunately, it is postponed till next Tuesday. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us next Tuesday for the senior dinner. The town tree lighting ceremony is scheduled for 12/2 at 4 p.m. at the Veterans Park. So hopefully a lot of people will come out for that. And that should be a fun event. So please plan on that as well. And I also want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a happy holiday. And hopefully everybody will have an enjoyable time with their family and their friends. And remember to be thankful for all our blessings. That's what I have.
All right. Moving on to selectmen comments.
I think it's December 22nd. There's going to be a blood drive at the Assembly of God Church in memory of Leo Assad, dedicated to Leo Assad. So be on the lookout for that. That's all I have.
I'd just like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe.
I agree with you.
Oh my God. We'll write this down.
All right. Good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One of the things that would be useful to